Archer Queen. Those two words alone are enough to set the hearts of Clash Royale players racing. At first glance, her striking beauty and elegant combat style make her an instant fan favorite across the arenas. But it was the hints of a deeper, darker power simmering just beneath the surface that truly captivated imaginations. However, there was more to the Archer Queen than met the eye. While the Archer Queen's unparalleled skill with her crossbow garnered widespread adoration, it was the aura of mystery surrounding her that transformed her from just another troop into an irresistible obsession for millions. Players were drawn to her not just for her in-game prowess, but for the untold stories and secrets that seemed to swirl around her like a cloak of mystery. This is the tale of how one enigmatic figure emerged from the shadows, defied all expectations, and forever altered the landscape of Clash Royale. The legend of the Archer Queen. On October 27, 2021, the Clash Royale universe witnessed the arrival of a legend, the Archer Queen. From the moment she stepped into the arena, the Archer Queen commanded attention. Her striking appearance with her flowing purple hair and regal crown set her apart from the other troops. Players couldn't help but be drawn to her, eager to see what she was capable of. Little did they know the Archer Queen would soon become a force to be reckoned with, reshaping the very landscape of the arena. Her unique ability, the cloaking cape, allowed her to vanish from sight, becoming untargetable by enemy troops. This invisibility, combined with a significant boost in attack speed, transformed her into a whirlwind of destruction on the field. Word of the Archer Queen's power spread like wildfire throughout the Clash Royale community. Players eagerly shared strategies and tips seeking to master this game-changing champion. They discovered that even with just a sliver of health, the Archer Queen could turn the tide of battle with her ability, making her a formidable presence on the field until the very end. Among the top 1,000 players on the ladder in October, an astonishing 14% had already embraced the Archer Queen as their champion of choice. Even more impressive was the fact that 140 of these elite players had managed to fully max out their Archer Queens in such a short span of time. While these numbers might seem surprising at first glance, a closer look at the Archer Queen's abilities reveals why she quickly became the go-to choice for so many top players. Her cloak ability, which granted her temporary invisibility and a significant boost in attack speed, had an incredibly short cooldown of just 12 seconds. This meant that players could deploy her on defense, utilize her ability to turn the tide of battle, and then seamlessly transition into an offensive push with the same ability ready to be used again. This level of versatility and adaptability was unheard of in the Clash Royale meta, and it quickly became apparent that the Archer Queen was in a league of her own. But what truly set her apart from the other troops was the fact that, while cloaked, she maintained the same movement speed as her normal state. This made her an even more formidable force on the field, as she could swiftly reposition herself and continue to rain down destruction upon her foes. As the Archer Queen's popularity soared, top players from around the world began to experiment with new decks and strategies to unleash her full potential. One player who stood out among the rest was Morten, widely regarded as the best Clash Royale player in the world. Morten's innovative approach to deck building led him to create a devastating combination that would soon become the stuff of a legend. He discovered that by pairing the Archer Queen with the Mega Knight and the Ram Rider, he could create an almost unstoppable force on the battlefield. The synergy between these cards was nothing short of remarkable. The Mega Knight, with his massive area damage and ability to leap across the arena, served as the perfect tank to absorb enemy fire and clear the way for the Archer Queen and Ram Rider to work their magic. Meanwhile, the Ram Rider's unique ability to snare enemy buildings and troops made her the ideal partner for the Archer Queen. Together, they could quickly take down enemy defenses and clear a path straight to the opponent's towers. But it was the Archer Queen who truly made this combo shine. Her unparalleled damage output and ability to cloak herself and increase her attack speed allowed her to shred through enemy troops and buildings with ease. Morten unleashed this deck against the world's best players, and the results were nothing short of astonishing. Time and time again, he emerged victorious, leaving his opponents scratching their heads and wondering how they could possibly counter such a powerful powerful combination. Word of Morton's success with this deck spread like wildfire throughout the Clash Royale community. Players at all levels began to copy this strategy, hoping to replicate his success and climb the ranks themselves. As word of the Archer Queen's dominance spread, more and more players began to pour their resources into unlocking and upgrading this game-changing champion. The allure of her unique abilities and the promise of climbing the ranks with her by their side proved irresistible to many. As players continued to explore the intricacies of the Archer Queen's abilities, they began to notice some peculiar interactions that seemed to defy the normal rules of the game. These issues quickly became the talk of the Clash Royale community as players debated whether they were intentional features or simply bugs that needed to be fixed. Before we dive deeper into the Archer Queen's interactions, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for following along with this story. If you're enjoying the content and appreciate the effort being put into creating these videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support means a great deal and helps me continue making high-quality content for the Clash Royale community, because we both know it needs it. Also, if you're looking for a fun and engaging place to connect with other Clashers, discuss strategies, and even play some games together, I highly recommend joining our Discord community. It's a fantastic way to meet like-minded individuals and take your Clash Royale experience to the next level. There's a link to that down in the description below. Now, let's get back to the story and explore one of the most significant issues surrounding the Archer Queen. One of the most significant issues revolving around the Archer Queen is her interaction with the log. Under normal circumstances, the log would knock back any ground troops. But when the Archer Queen was under the effect of her cloaking capability, the log seemed to have no effect on her at all. She'd simply continue on her path, like nothing happened. This interaction defied the very laws of the arena, leaving players both amazed and confused. But the issues with the Archer Queen's ability didn't stop there. Perhaps the most outrageous bug involved her interaction with the Mega Knight. Under normal circumstances, when the Mega Knight jumped onto an enemy troop, it would deal massive damage and often destroy them outright. But instead of taking the full brunt of the Mega Knight's damage, the Archer Queen would emerge unscathed. It was as if the Mega Knight's attack had simply passed right through her, leaving her completely untouched. As if the issues with the log and Mega Knight interactions weren't enough, players soon discovered yet another bug that made the Archer Queen even more of a headache to deal with. This time it involved the Tornado spell. When players tried to use the Tornado on the Archer Queen, they noticed something strange would happen. Sometimes the Archer Queen would be pulled towards the center of the Tornado, just like any other troop, but other times she'd remain completely unaffected, as if the Tornado had no power over her at all. But regardless of the reason behind it, the Tornado bug quickly became yet another point of frustration for players trying to deal with the Archer Queen's overwhelming power. As the complaints and frustrations mounted, Supercell once again found themselves under pressure to address the issues with the Archer Queen. They knew they needed to act quickly to restore balance to the game before the community lost faith in their ability to manage the meta. But even as they worked to address those bugs and glitches, the Archer Queen's popularity continued to soar. Players who had once dismissed her as just another overpowered card began to see the true depth and complexity of her abilities, and the incredible potential she had to shape the future of the game. As the Clash Royale community continued to experiment with possibilities of the Archer Queen, the Royal Giant, Mother Witch, and Archer Queen deck began to rise in prominence. The Royal Giant, a powerful card that's been a staple in many decks for years, proved to be the perfect companion for the Archer Queen. His high hit points, consistent damage output, all that created the ideal foundation for the Archer Queen to shine. But it was the addition of the Mother Witch that truly made this deck glow. Her unique ability to curse enemy troops and turn them into hogs upon death added a whole new layer of strategy to the game. When combined with the Archer Queen's ability to cloak herself and increase her attack speed, the Mother Witch became an incredibly powerful asset. One player who quickly realized the potential of this deck was Boss, a highly skilled and respected member of the Clash Royale community. Boss began to use this deck in tournaments and ladder matches, and the results were nothing short of incredible. He clashed with the game's elite, including Mugi and Sergio Ramos. But even these seasoned veterans were no match for Boss and his Royal Giant, Mother Witch, and Archer Queen combo. Match after match, Boss dominated his opponents, making it look almost effortless. His mastery of the deck and his ability to adapt to any situation made him a force to be reckoned with. And soon, players from all over the world were studying his replays and trying to replicate his success. But even as this deck rose to the top of the meta, Boss remained the undisputed king. His ability to outplay his opponents and make clutch plays in the heat of battle made him a true legend in the Clash Royale community. Just a week after the Archer Queen's triumphant debut, the developers at Supercell realized that her power had grown beyond their control. They knew that if it was left unchecked, she would continue to dominate the meta and make the game feel unbalanced and unfair for those who didn't have her in their decks. And so, with a heavy heart, they announced the first balance update for the Archer Queen. First and foremost, the cooldown time for her cloaking cape was increased from 11 to 15 seconds. May not seem like a big change on paper, but in the heat of battle, those extra 4 seconds can feel like an eternity. Players who had grown accustomed to using the cloaking cape multiple times in a single push suddenly found themselves unable to do so. The increased cooldown time meant they had to be much more strategic about when and where they used the ability, as they wouldn't be able to rely on it as a crutch anymore. But the nerfs didn't stop there. The duration of the cloaking cape was also decreased from 3.5 seconds to 3 seconds. Again, this may not seem like a huge change, but in-game, where every fraction of a second counts, it was a significant nerf. With the cloaking cape's duration reduced, players had even less time to make use of the Archer Queen's increased damage output and speed. They had to be more precise with their timing and positioning, as they couldn't afford to waste even a single moment of the ability's duration. Despite the nerfs and balance changes, the Archer Queen proved to be incredibly resilient in the ever-shifting meta of Clash Royale. Many players expected her usage rates to plummet after the nerfs, but to their surprise, she remained a popular and powerful choice at the highest levels of play. In the month of November, the Archer Queen's usage rate on the top ladder dropped only slightly, from 14% to 13.4%. This 0.6% difference was a testament to her enduring strength and versatility, even in the face of significant nerfs to her abilities. But perhaps even more impressive was the way that top players began to incorporate the Archer Queen into new and innovative deck archetypes. One of the most notable examples of this was the rise of the P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam deck, which combined the raw power of P.E.K.K.A. with the mobility and versatility of the Archer Queen. Two of the best P.E.K.K.A. players in the world, Anaban and Fat Cat, quickly rose to the top of the global rankings using this powerful combination. The reason for this deck's success was clear. It had an excellent matchup against some of the most popular and powerful decks in the meta at the time. The Royal Giant and Morton's Mega Knight Archer Queen decks, which had been dominating the ladder for weeks, suddenly found themselves struggling against the raw power and tankiness of the P.E.K.K.A. To illustrate just how effective this deck could be, let's take a look at a high-level gameplay match between Anaban and Morton. Okay, here is Anaban with his Archer Queen P.E.K.K.A. deck. Starts off with the Royal Ghost there, going to be countered with the Barb Barrel, along with another Royal Ghost of Morton's own. But Barb Barrel on the bridge here, stop that Royal Knight from pushing, Royal Ghost from pushing. And started the bridge spam right here. Bandit comes in from Anaban, P.E.K.K.A. to counter the Archer Queen on the other side from Morton. Bandit is going to probably, oh no, not going to get the charge off, but that is scary, having both the Archer Queen and the P.E.K.K.A. pushing in from both sides here. Hog Rider going to go down on both sides here. Archer Queen getting some DPS in. Morton still has to deal with this P.E.K.K.A. That's like a quarter of his tower every auto attack here. And that's going to be basically just a free tower for Anaban. Having to deal with both the Ram Rider, the Archer Queen, and that P.E.K.K.A. on that side is just so much pressure to deal with. And of course, we got the Mega Knight pushing left side. Going to be stopped by the P.E.K.K.A. Does go for the Mega Knight Archer Queen combo here, but it's really slow to take out that P.E.K.K.A. He's going to probably pop his invis as soon as the P.E.K.K.A. gets in melee range, and it does. Another Mega Knight to help finish off that P.E.K.K.A. Bandit here for the charge, and a beautiful lightning spell there to kill the Archer Queen. Mega Knight's going to get stopped by a Royal Ghost, a Barb Barrel, and the dregs of that push there, and Electro Wizard, but he's just not going to get enough damage on the tower, and that's going to be it. The Archer Queen's dominance in the meta was on full display at the Clash Royale World Finals in December of 2021, as the best players from around the world gathered to compete for the title of World Champion. The Archer Queen proved to be a crucial pick in many of the top players' decks. In this particular match, Elpsyop's mastery of the Archer Queen was on full display, as he used her to devastating effect against his opponent's defenses. The Archer Queen's power was immediately apparent apparent as she swiftly took down the enemy mortar, shredding through its hit points with ease. But Elsap wasn't done yet. As his opponent attempted to mount a counterattack with their own Archer Queen, Elsap's queen proved to be more than a match. In a matter of seconds, she had taken down her counterpart, leaving the enemy's defenses in shambles. The Archer Queen's versatility was on full display as she then turned her attention to the enemy knight, and he stood no chance. He made short work of the knight, eliminating it from the battlefield entirely. Then she almost took out the cannon cart. That is a lot of value. His victory in this match was well deserved, and served as a testament to his mastery of the game and his understanding of the meta. Now, the match between Michifu and Line was one for the ages. A true clash, pun intended, of titans between the two best players in the world. On one side, we had Michifu, a master of the Royal Hog's Archer Queen deck, known for his aggressive playstyle and ability to apply relentless pressure on his opponents. On the other side, we had Line, a skilled player using the P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam deck. And the Ram Rider does take that mortar out log. It's gonna set the P.E.K.K.A. back just a little bit here, but our good boy, Golden Knight Giga Chad, gonna get his charge off in here, along with the Mother Witch, cursing those enemies, getting hogs of her own, turning hogs into hogs. Don't know how that magic works, but that's all right. Archer Queen's stealth is gonna come out, and that's going to be a Ram Rider on the right side. Queen is gonna take out the Archer Queen. Witch is going to take out the Archer Queen. And that Ram Rider, not really going to get a whole lot done there, but that is okay. We're going to see exactly where Line can pull off his good old card combos here. E-Wizard, coupled with the Mother Witch, taking out as many of those Royal Hogs as they can. Earthquake Spell going to be putting in a little bit of work. And these Hogs pushing. Bandit on the right side does get lured by these skeletons, but that's all right. Big push from Line on this left side. It does get logged, but that is okay. Golden Knight just putting in work there, getting a nice little charge off. P.E.K.K.A. going to be able to take out that Valkyrie nice and easy. And we're going to have to see the Archer Queen blow her invis on the P.E.K.K.A. here. He's just getting baited around Michifu's whole side of the field here. But damage-wise, it is looking pretty even. Line's bridge spam isn't working out nearly as well as we've seen in that last clip. Archer Queen, just going to be taking out our Golden Knight boy. Does get forced to pop the invis there on the defense. And this P.E.K.K.A. either is going to smack that Archer Queen, or she's just going to get taken down by the tower. Ram Rider to couple in with this bridge spam on the P.E.K.K.A. We're going to probably see... Yep, Bandit on the right side yet again. Golden Knight gonna get some fun old charges. Does get pulled over to both mortars. Bandit gonna help take that out as well. Ram Rider does get taken out with the log. Unfortunately, doesn't get a whole lot of value out of that log, actually. Mother Witch turning that Valkyrie into a hog. There's some kind of metaphor there that I'm not going to come up with. P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider on the bridge again, this time with the Bandit on the same side. Does get a lot of value off of that log there just because so many units are stuck there. Golden Knight is just doing his charging thing. Unable to get over the river, though. Skelly's to lure him a little bit more, and another Mother Witch. Michifu's just doing a wonderful job defending here, and he does end up with the victory. The Archer Queen's popularity continued to soar in the months following the World Finals, as more and more players began to recognize her incredible potential and versatility on the battlefield. From November to December, her usage rate among top players skyrocketed from 13% to nearly 23%, a staggering 40% overall increase that cemented her place as one of the most important cards in the game. At the very top of the ladder, we saw some truly incredible performances from players using the Archer Queen to dominate their opponents. Muhammad Light, in particular, stood out as one of the best players in the world, securing the #1 spot on the leaderboard. But perhaps one of the most impressive stories to come out of this period was that of Ian77, a very small YouTuber who managed to climb all the way to the #9 spot on the global leaderboard. For months, Ian had been using the Firecracker in his Hog Earthquake deck, but with the rise of the Archer Queen, Ian saw an opportunity to take his deck to the next level. By replacing the Firecracker with the Archer Queen, Ian was able to add a whole new dimension to his playstyle. The results spoke for themselves. With his new improved Hog Earthquake deck, Ian77 began to climb the ladder at an incredible rate, taking down some of the best players in the world along the way. His unique playstyle and mastery of the Archer Queen caught the attention of the entire Clash Royale community, and he quickly became a fan favorite and a symbol of what was possible with skill, dedication, and willingness to innovate. But one thing was certain: the Archer Queen had left an indelible mark on the game, and her legacy would endure for years to come. In January of 2022, the Archer Queen's popularity reached new heights, with her usage rate among top players soaring to an impressive 27.3%. It was a testament to her incredible versatility and power on the board. But perhaps even more striking was her dominance among the very best players in the world. When looking at the top 10 decks used by the game's most elite competitors, the Archer Queen appeared in an astonishing 9 out of 10 decks. This 90% usage rate was a clear indication of just how essential she had become at the highest levels of play. One player who truly exemplified the Archer Queen's potential was Mohamed Light, who secured the coveted #1 spot on the global leaderboard using various decks featuring the Archer Queen and Mega Knight. Mohamed Light's mastery of these decks was a sight to behold, as he consistently outplayed his opponents and made clutch plays in the most high-pressure situations. Mohamed Light's mastery of the game extended far beyond just one deck archetype. His ability to adapt and excel with a variety of strategies was a testament to his deep understanding of the game's mechanics and his ability to make the most of every card in his decks. As the Archer Queen's popularity and usage rates continued to soar, it became increasingly clear that something needed to be done to address her overwhelming dominance on the Clash Royale board. Recognizing the need for change, Supercell decided to implement a significant balance update in early February. Under the new changes, activating the Cloaking Cape would now decrease the Archer Queen's speed to 45, which was classified as slow in the game's mechanics. At first glance, this might not seem like a major change, but in practice, it had a profound impact on the Archer Queen's gameplay. With her movement speed reduced by 25% while using her ability, the Archer Queen became much easier to track and target. Players now had a better chance of predicting her movements and setting up counterplays, which helped to level the playing field and make matches more competitive. Despite this nerf, the Archer Queen remained a popular choice among players, particularly at the highest levels of play. Her unique blend of abilities and the strategies that had been developed around her were simply too strong to be completely nullified by a single balance change. As we stepped into February of 2022, the Clash Royale community was buzzing with anticipation, eager to see how the recent balance changes would impact the game's meta. To my surprise, when I looked at the data from the top ladder players, I found that the Archer Queen's usage rate had actually increased. From a respectable 27.3% in January, her usage had climbed to an impressive 28.1% in February. As I dug deeper into the stats, one player in particular caught my eye. There, sitting proudly in 4th place, was none other than Ian77, a rising star in the Clash Royale community and one of my favorite YouTubers. What made Ian's achievement more remarkable was his age. At just 17 years old, he managed to outplay and outthink some of the best players in the world. As I watched Ian's gameplay, I couldn't help but be impressed by his skill and creativity. Meanwhile, the Archer Queen continued to maintain her strong presence in the meta, holding steady at 28% usage rate throughout March. It seemed that despite the nerfs, players were still finding ways to make her work in their decks. But just as players were getting comfortable with the current state of the game, everything changed in the blink of an eye. In April, Supercell dropped another bombshell. The Archer Queen was receiving yet another nerf, making her 4th nerf in just 6 months since her introduction to the game. And once again, this nerf was focused on her Cloaking Cape ability. The April 2022 update decreased the attack speed buff provided by the ability from 200% to 80%. At first glance, this might have seemed like a minor change, but in practice, it had a huge impact on the Archer Queen's overall effectiveness. The results were immediate and dramatic. In April, the Archer Queen's usage rate plummeted to just 12%, with only 120 players using her in their decks out of the top 1,000. This represented a staggering 60% decrease compared to the previous months, and served as a powerful reminder of just how much even a small change can completely shift the meta. But even in the face of this significant nerf, the Archer Queen refused to die. In the months that followed, she maintained a steady usage rate of 12 to 15%. Proving that she was still a viable choice for players who knew how to use her effectively. As the Clash Royale community grappled with the changes to the Archer Queen, a new star was rising through the ranks. Enter El Patron, a player who had already established himself as one of the best graveyard players in the world. In April, he climbed all the way to the top of the global leaderboard, securing the #1 spot in the world. But what made El Patron's success even more impressive was the way he achieved it. Okay, El Patron's up top, Calmiro in the bottom. So, Cal starts off by dropping his little bomber guy with the E-Giant to start a push over the bridge here. El Patron's going to respond himself by dropping a Giant on the right side to kind of put some pressure, start his own push on all that side. Bomber and Giant, it looks like he's just going to give this tower up for free, but no, drops the Archer Queen to maybe do what he can. Tornado Spell does get dropped on the Queen, does pop the Invis to stop that. Graveyard's going to be popped on top of that tower, let the Giant get in. Basically, for free, our boy, the Dark Prince, is doing what he can to stop that Graveyard push, but it's not going to be enough. Dark Prince of El Patron's own, coupled with his Archer Queen on the left side there, and he does manage to get that right tower. It was a proper trade, and honestly, one in El Patron's favor, because that other tower is about to go down to the Archer Queen, and he does have a Dark Prince on the right side with Miro's Archer Queen, but, you know, Skelly Army is going to take care of that quite easily. Good old Bomber taking care of those grouped up troops as per usual, doing his job. Cal dropping his E-Giant on the right side there, and El Patron is just going to go for it. He's just saying, I don't care what you have to push with. I have my own push. And it's going to get done the way I want it. He does drop his Goblin Cage, try to stall here just a little bit. A really actually good Tornado Spell there from Miro, but it's not going to be enough. El Patron just said, I don't care about defending. Your stuff's going to be gone before I have to worry about it. El Patron's success inspired a whole new generation of Graveyard players who looked to him as a role model and a source of inspiration. They studied his replays, trying to uncover the secrets of his success, and worked tirelessly to improve their own gameplay. El Patron's impact on the Clash Royale community cannot be overstated. He single-handedly redefined what was possible with the Graveyard deck, and inspired a whole new generation of players to push the boundaries of what was thought possible. As the dust settled from the Archer Queen nerfs and El Patron's incredible rise to the top, the Clash Royale community was in for yet another surprise. The April 2022 update brought with it a major buff to an often overlooked card, the Giant Skeleton. The changes were significant. The Giant Skeleton's hit points were increased by a whopping 7%, while his attack time interval was decreased to 1.4 seconds from 1.5. These buffs may have seemed small on paper, but again, in practice, they had an enormous impact on the card's viability in the meta. As players adapted to the new reality of a weakened Archer Queen, they soon discovered the untapped potential of the newly buffed Giant Skeleton. As the new meta began to take shape, one player in particular emerged as the master of the Giant Skeleton Archer Queen combo, Muhammad Light. In July, Muhammad Light once again proved his skills by reaching the number 3 spot in the global leaderboard with a deck that featured the Goblin Drill, Giant Skeleton, and Archer Queen as its core components. As the month wore on, more and more players began to adopt the Giant Skeleton Archer Queen combo, and it quickly became one of the most popular and effective strategies in the game. In August, a familiar face emerged at the top of the global leaderboard, and you'll never guess who it is, Ian77. But this time, Ian had a new trick up his sleeve. He had taken the classic Hog Earthquake deck and added a twist, incorporating the Giant Skeleton and Archer Queen into the mix. The result was a devastatingly effective combo that took the meta by storm. Watching Ian pilot this deck was a masterclass in Clash Royale gameplay. He seemed to have a sixth sense for when to drop each card, using the Hog Rider to apply pressure and force his opponent to overcommit, then dropping the Giant Skeleton and Archer Queen to clean up and secure the victory. As the Clash Royale community marveled at Ian77's incredible success with the Hog Earthquake deck, little did they know that the meta was about to be turned on its head once again. Whispers began circulating of chaos on the horizon, a storm that would shake the foundations of the established order. Then, like a bolt from the blue, Supercell unleashed 2 unprecedented new cards upon an unsuspecting arena. Enter the Phoenix, a majestic creature of flame and rebirth. It took to the skies of the arena, its fiery attacks incinerating enemy troops and leaving behind nothing but ash and despair. And the monk, a serene yet powerful figure, stepped onto the field with an aura of mystical energy. The Clash Royale's forums and social media platforms erupted with excitement and fear as players scrambled to come up with new strategies to incorporate the Phoenix and monk into their decks. Almost overnight, the meta shifted. Overshadowed by the Phoenix and Monk's arrivals, the once dominant Archer Queen struggled for relevance. Players who had once relied on her unique abilities were forced to adapt, trying out new strategies and combos in an attempt to stay competitive. and the numbers tell the story. In November 2022, the Archer Queen's usage rate had plummeted to just 3.5%, down from a high of 28% in January and 12% in April, after that massive nerf. It was a stunning fall from grace, and a testament to just how quickly the game could change, but the Clash Royale community is nothing if not resilient, and it didn't take long for players to start finding new ways to counter the Phoenix and the Monk. Supercell too realized the need for balance, and in the weeks and months that followed, both cards were hit with a series of nerfs designed to bring them back in line with the rest of the game. The impact was immediate. With the Phoenix and Monk no longer dominating the meta, other cards began to shine once again, and chief among them was the Archer Queen, who saw a stunning resurgence in popularity. In December, her usage rate skyrocketed to 18%, a massive 500% increase from the previous month. Once again, it was Ian77 who led the charge, dominating the leaderboard with his trusty Hog Earthquake deck. His success was a testament to his skill and adaptability as a player, and a reminder that even in the face of the most dramatic meta shifts, there's always a way to come out on top. As the Clash Royale universe continues to expand and evolve, the Archer Queen's journey serves as a testament to the game's ever-shifting landscape. With new challenges on the horizons, players must adapt and innovate to secure their place in the arena's history. The future may be uncertain, but one thing is clear. The Archer Queen's legacy, forged through triumphs and tribulations, will forever be etched in the annals of Clash Royale lore. As January 2023 dawned, the Archer Queen still held her place as one of the most dominant forces in Clash Royale. With a usage rate of 18.5%, it was clear that players still had faith in her ability to turn the tide of any battle, and leading the charge was none other than Ian77, the legendary player who had made the Archer Queen his signature card. With his skills and mastery of the game, he once again climbed the ranks, reaching the number 3 spot in the world and cementing his place as one of the greatest players of all time. But even as the Archer Queen basked in the glow of her success, dark clouds were gathering on the horizon. In February, a balance update brought a small but significant nerf to the Archer Queen's first attack time interval, increasing it from 0.1 seconds to 0.3 seconds. To some, this change may have seemed minor, but to the top players who had mastered the Archer Queen's every move, it was a blow that would have far-reaching consequences.
So the first attack that the Archer Queen does is going to be a lot slower. This is a pretty substantial nerf. I know a lot of people are saying that this is small, but let me tell you the biggest difference this is going to make. First time hit, right? So every time it targets a new card, so say she's attacking like a minion horde or a skeleton army, each individual one of those, it's taking her much longer to fire the first shot. This means she's going to be significantly worse against swarm cards. So things like bats, skeleton army, minion horde, things like that. So against beatdown, where the cards have a lot of health, so against things like Valkyrie, Golem, E-Giant, stuff like that, she's not going to be that much worse.
And as if that weren't enough, February also saw the rise of a new threat in the arena, the Firecracker. With a massive buff that decreased her first attack time interval from 1 second to just 0.6 seconds, the Firecracker quickly became the new go-to card for players looking to dominate the game.
Next one is the Firecracker. It's getting a massive buff. I mean, this is probably the biggest buff for sure out of all of them. First hit time, 1 second all the way to 0.6. I don't think people realize how big of a buff this is, especially against multiple units and swarms and stuff like that, especially if the Firecracker doesn't get stuck anymore. I think it is going to go from right now being one of the worst cards in the game to potentially one of the best.
Almost overnight, the usage rate of Archer Queen plummeted to just 5%. Players who had once sworn by her now flocked to the Firecracker, eager to take advantage of her newfound power. For some, it seemed like the end of an era. The Archer Queen, once the undisputed queen of the arena, now found herself struggling to keep up with the changing meta. Some even whispered that this was the beginning of the end for the legendary card. As February drew to a close, the future of the Archer Queen hung in the balance. Would she rise again, stronger than ever, or would this be the beginning of a long and painful decline, as players abandoned her for the newer, shinier cards that now dominated the arena? The answer, as always, lay in the hands of the players. They alone would decide the fate of the Archer Queen, and the future of the game itself. As March arrived, the Archer Queen found herself in a precarious position. With a usage rate of just 5% among top players, it was clear that she was no longer the dominant force she had once been. But even as her popularity waned, there were still those who believed in her potential, who saw her as a viable option in the right hands. And then, in April, again, everything changed. A new set of balance changes swept through the game, and while the Archer Queen herself remained untouched, the ripple effects of those changes would soon be felt throughout the arena. First, there were the archers. Once a staple of many decks, they were hit with a massive nerf that increased their first hit time from 0.1 seconds to 0.5. A staggering 400% difference. Suddenly, those once reliable troops were no longer the quick and nimble fighters they had once been. And then there was the Golden Knight. This champion had long been a favorite of many players, thanks to his ability to close the distance quickly and unleash devastating damage, not to mention that mewing jawline. But with his dash distance reduced by 0.5 tiles, an 8% decrease, he too found himself struggling to keep up. For the Archer Queen, these changes were like a gift from above. Players who once relied on the Archers and the Golden Knight now found themselves searching for new options, and many of them turned to the Archer Queen as a viable alternative. The results were almost immediate. In April, the Archer Queen's usage rate skyrocketed to 16%, a staggering 220% increase from the previous month. Suddenly, she was once again a force to be reckoned with, dominating the arena like never before. And leading the charge yet again was, I'm sure you know his name by this point, Ian77. This time switching from the tried and true Hog Rider to Royal Hogs, reaching the 14th spot in the world in May and cementing his place as one of the greatest players of all time. As the summer of 2023 dawned, the Clash Royale community was reckoned by a game-changing update that would forever alter the course of the game. The Evolution update introduced 4 troops that could be evolved: the Firecracker, Royal Giant, Barbarians, and Skeletons. And with these overpowered cards came a major shift in the meta that would leave no card untouched. For the Archer Queen, the impact was, well, devastating. As players turned to the new evolved cards, especially the Firecracker, her usage rate plummeted. In June, it fell to just 4.5%, a staggering 70% decrease from the previous months, and while some players still managed to find success with her, it was clear that the writing was on the wall. As the months passed and new evolutions entered the arena, things only got worse for the Archer Queen. The introduction of the Evo Knight in August, with his incredibly strong defensive ability, was another blow to her viability, and as her usage rate fell to just 2.8%, it seemed like the once mighty champion was fading into obscurity. But even as the Archer Queen struggled to keep up, the game continued to evolve at a breakneck pace. In November, 2 new cards entered the arena: the Evo Archers and the Little Prince. And once again, these new additions would prove to be the final nail in the coffin for the Archer Queen. The Little Prince, in particular, was a force to be reckoned with a usage rate of nearly 50% on the top ladder. It was clear that this new champion had captured the hearts and minds of players everywhere. And as players abandoned the Archer Queen in droves, her usage rate fell to a new low of just 0.6%. But as bad as things had gotten for the Archer Queen, they were about to get even worse. In December, her usage rate fell to an almost unthinkable 0.4%, a staggering 98% decrease from her glory days in January, leaving players to wonder if the once legendary champion had finally met her match. Whispers began to circulate in the darkest corners of the arena, hushed rumors of a brewing storm that would soon take over the realm of Clash Royale. Was it the end of the Archer Queen? Had she truly been buried, never to rise again? Or was there still a glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption in the year to come? In the darkest of times, when all hope seems lost, a glimmer of light can still shine through. And for the Archer Queen, that light is about to burst forth in a blaze of glory, revealing that her story is far from over. Brace yourselves, because the comeback of the century was about to unfold. As January 2024 arrived, the Clash Royale community was in for a treat. The balance update brought significant changes to the game, and it all started with the Evo Archers and the Little Prince's Guardian receiving some much-needed nerfs.
Minus 11%, that's pretty substantial, and then on top of that, the damage of the Little Prince itself is going to be 9% less, so that is a pretty fat nerf. Probably not a big surprise either are the Evolved Archers, even though they were emergency nerfed last week. week, it has proven that it has not been enough of a nerf, and the range of them is getting decreased by 8%, and then the power shot range along with that, minus 10%.
While these cards were still incredibly strong, the nerfs opened up a window of opportunity for the Archer Queen to make her comeback. But the real game changer came in the form of a buff to the Archer Queen herself. The Cloaking Cape's duration was increased from 3 seconds to 3.5 seconds, a seemingly small change that would have a massive impact on the way she interacted with other cards on the field.
The ability from the Archer Queen now gets a buff, which is really interesting. So currently the Cloaking Cape has an invincibility duration from 3 seconds. After the update, it will be 3.5 seconds, so way more damage. As you guys can see here, the damage per second will be 448 damage, second boost plus 180%. This is like what she does, right? And if you kind of think about it, she's going to do it after the update 0.5 seconds longer. This could be big, this could be massive, killing troops sooner, better against mini packer lumberjacks and so on.
This 0.5 second increase in her ability duration was exactly what she needed to turn the tide in her favor. The results were almost immediate. In January, the Archer Queen's usage rate skyrocketed to 4.5% on the top ladder, a staggering 1,100% increase from her December usage rate of just 0.4%. It was clear that players were starting to recognize her potential once again, and they were eager to incorporate her into their decks. However, the road to the top was still a long one for the Archer Queen. Despite the nerfs, the Evo Archers and the Little Prince remained the best cards in the game. And new Evos like the Bomber and the Evo Tesla proved to be challenging counters for her to overcome. As a result, her usage rate settled to a respectable 3.5%, a clear indication that she still had some work to do to reclaim her former glory. But there is hope on the horizon. Many players believe that the Archer Queen is just one buff away from becoming the dominant force she once was. By reducing the cooldown of her ability and restoring her stats to their original values, the Archer Queen could once again reshape the meta and become a staple in every top player's deck. But for now, let's take a step back in time and uncover the untold story of another legendary card, the Dark Prince. Join me on a captivating journey as we explore the rise and fall of this once dominant force in the meta. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this thrilling tale.